Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Windows 8.1 Overview. My name is Sakina, and I'm the Volunteer Events and Marketing Officer. I have Ben here today, who is the Content and Community Coordinator at Connecting Up. So before I hand it over to Ben, just wanted to go through some housekeeping notes. To those who are new, please feel free to type in your questions in the question box. We will try and make sure to answer all the questions during or at the end of the presentation. If you're facing any technical issues, like if you're having any audio issues or are unable to see the slides, please type in those issues as well and we will get them sorted out for you. The presentation is being recorded, so everyone present will receive an email with the link to the recording and the slides by the end of the day today. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Ben.
Great, thanks Sakina. So today we are going to have a look at Windows 8.1 and also I'm going to spend as little time as I can in the PowerPoint presentation and as much time as I can actually demoing the product for you so that you can get a feel for what Windows 8.1 looks like and can do. Just a little bit of background about myself. So I am the Content and Community Coordinator here at Connecting Up, and I use a mixture of devices in my day-to-day work, but for my work laptop I use a Windows 8 Ultrabook, and it has a touch screen as well. So I use Windows 8.1 on a daily basis, so if there are any other questions that you want to ask specifically as we go through, please do put them in the chat box and we'll be pausing throughout the presentation to answer your questions. So for not-for-profits, I guess the big question about Windows 8.1 are like, what are the benefits? How does it compare to previous versions, especially if you're upgrading from XP or Vista or Windows 7? We'll also go through some of the key points that you'd want to look at when you're considering upgrading, and also how not-for-profit organisations can access donations of Windows 8.1 from Microsoft through the Connecting Up program. So the first point is that Windows XP is coming to its end of life very, very soon. So if you have machines that are running Windows XP, you will want to look at upgrading those to Windows 7 or Windows 8 and factoring that in as soon as you can. While you still be able to use Windows XP, Microsoft won't be providing any security updates or patches directly for Windows XP. I think they'll be doing some for Windows Security Essentials if you're using that, but they won't be patching it unless you're part of a select group who are still going to be running Windows XP, but their cost for that is about $200 a machine a year, I believe. But for the general consumer, for most organisations, if you're on Windows XP, it's definitely time to think about upgrading if you haven't already. In terms of benefits of Windows 8.1 over previous versions, there are quite a few. One of the big things that a lot of people saw when Windows 8 first came out was that it was faster to boot, faster to load up, and that also includes older machines. So it's actually a lot snappier from the time you press the power button to when you can actually start doing things. Just while we're looking at this, Windows 8.1 is just the next version of Windows 8. So Windows 8 came out a while ago, and Windows 8.1 was just the update that came out at the end of last year, and it brought a whole bunch of new features that made it a lot more accessible for organisations who wanted to use it with a mouse and a keyboard rather than touch screen. So that's why we talk about Windows 8.1 throughout this presentation. There's also an update that's coming through very soon as well that's going to add some new features, but we'll have a quick look at that at the end of this if we have time. Okay, so a few other features that come with Windows 8.1. You get free security built in, so they have Windows Defender already installed. So if you want your basic security, then you can be sure that Windows 8.1 has that, and that plays well with other third-party programs. So for example, if you're grabbing your Symantec or Kaspersky Enterprise solution, then you can still install that without any hassles. A big thing for Windows 8.1 and the direction that Microsoft is going is that it's all cloud enabled. So if you have a Microsoft account, if you're using OneDrive, which used to be called SkyDrive, then you can store all your files and synchronize them across your Windows 8.1 machine. So for example, I have my laptop here at work, but if I leave this at work and I log into my computer at home, which also runs Windows 8.1, I can access all my files that I have stored in SkyDrive or OneDrive. And that just makes it a lot easier for me to work anywhere. And another benefit is that if you're using, say, like a pool of computers at your workplace, let's say you have like a pool of laptops that you might send out with different people, they can also access their files via OneDrive if they need to. And of course, you can also synchronize your settings as well. So it's not just files, but you can synchronize, say, your backgrounds and your app settings, and we'll have a look at that in a little while too. The next benefit is the Windows Store apps. So if you've been a Windows user for a while, you know how clumsy it can be to find software to install on your computer. So let's say you wanted to find like an FTP program, or you wanted to find, say, like a media program. You'd have to, say, jump in your search engine, go online, hunt around, find a website, and then check that that website is legitimate, and then download your software and install and sort of you know, cross your fingers that that's going to be an okay piece of software and doesn't come with any other rubbish as well. Now with the Windows Store, you've got a one-stop shop for your apps. Now that includes modern UI apps or Metro apps or start screen apps, but also includes desktop apps if you're running a desktop machine. And of course, Smart Search is a very handy feature, and we'll have a look at that as well. It's simply a unified search where you can search the web, you can search your files, you can search your apps for anything that you're looking for. So we'll have a look at that as well as we go along. All right, so some of the big questions that a lot of people have been asking about shifting to Windows 8.1 is, the first is, where's the start menu and what's the deal with the modern UI apps or these different apps? We'll have a look at those. Where's the control panel and how can I edit, say, the finer settings for my computer? Have they all gone, or where do I find those? How does this whole start screen, modern UI, full screen app, modern you know, Metro user interface work? We'll have a look at that. And also we'll look at the difference between these modern UI apps and desktop apps and how they all play together. So that's a quick introduction, and instead of me rambling on, let's actually have a play and I'll show you what's going on. So I'm demoing this on my laptop. So I have a keyboard and I've got a mouse in front of me. So hopefully you can see my mouse moving around there. But I've also got a touch screen. So when I touch the screen, you'll see there's a little animation there. Hopefully you can see that. Sakina, does that come up okay on the screen? You can see a little dot or a square?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Fantastic. So hopefully what that means is that you better see what's going on as I show you around Windows 8.1. So let's jump out of PowerPoint, and I'm just going to hit my start button. Alright, so this is the start screen. So if you're familiar with Windows 7, the Windows 7 start menu, you can remember that when you press start, you get a whole bunch of options in terms of being able to pin apps or pin programs and see all your programs and make it larger or make it smaller depending on what you wanted to do. If you think of that, but now the start menu is just a full screen menu with some extra cool features, then that's probably the easiest way to think about the start menu, especially if you're using this from a desktop perspective. So you can see that I've got, I'll use my mouse here, you can see that I've got my Microsoft Office apps all bunched together there. Over on the left here, I've got a button that will take me to the desktop. I've got a button here that will take me to my mail app or my calendar app and a few other apps here. And I'm just using my mouse wheel to scroll, and instead of scrolling vertically, it actually scrolls horizontally. So even though I'm doing like a vertical movement with my finger, it scrolls across left to right. Okay. Likewise, if I was using this as a touch screen, I would just swipe across left and right without any issues. Now, these apps that you see here are apps that I've pinned. Now, what I mean by pinned is that I've chosen these to be displayed on the start screen, and you can customize this however you want to. And that's one of the great things about the start menu, is that it's really customizable, and you get all these cool features like these live tiles. As I'm speaking, you can see that there's little animations happening depending on what sort of app we're looking at. Okay, so let's say I don't want, say, the store app here. So this app is the Windows Store. Let's say I want to make that smaller. I can do that. So I've just sort of held it and clicked it. If I was using my mouse, I would right-click it, and you can see it's got a little tick there. And I've got a new menu now that pops up down the bottom. Now this is sort of the way that Windows 8.1 apps, the modern UI apps, work with their toolbars. They'll pop up from the bottom and from the top. Now I can click resize. I can make that smaller. Okay. I can also turn off that functionality where it's animated. If that's annoying, I can turn it on or I can turn it off. When it's small like that, you can't see it. But let's say I want to resize. I'm going to make it medium. So I'll still have it there. I can still see it. You can also remove it from this sort of start screen here. So let's say this food one. Again, I'm going to hold. And I'm going to click here in the bottom left-hand corner. So down here with the mouse, where the mouse is, unpin from start, and you can see it's gone. Now, where has that gone? Now, if you're using a mouse, you'll see this little arrow in the bottom left-hand corner show up. If you click that arrow, now you can see it shows you all the apps that I've got installed on my computer. Now, apps can also be called programs. So previously you'd say Adobe programs, so let's say I wanted to use Adobe Dreamweaver. That's here, I can find it. I've also got access to, now where is it? So I've got access to my File Explorer there. Okay. I've got access to all my other programs that I would previously have used quite frequently. So Control Panel is there as well. Now let's say I wanted to add all my Adobe products to my start screen so that when I first go to the start screen, I have all those right in front of me. I'm just right-clicking now, so Fireworks here, I'll right-click and it selects it, and you can see as soon as I've right-clicked it, that menu has popped up again. So I want Fireworks, Illustrator, Dreamweaver, Photoshop, and InDesign. I want all of those to be on my start screen. So I click Pin to Start. Now it takes me back to my start screen here, and now you can see it's added those icons here. Alright. Now it's grouped it with my Facebook, my Twitter, and my Foursquare apps. Now I don't really want those grouped together because there's this different type of app. So I'm going to click and hold, and I can drag it, and I'm going to move it here, and you can see this new highlight comes up. That means it's a separate section. Now let's say I don't want to just move one, I want to move lots of them, so I'm going to right click on each of these, and I grab them all, move them into that group, and I'm going to name that group Adobe, spell it, Adobe Apps. Okay, so that's there now, so I've got my Adobe app. So let's say, I want to move all these, I don't want them there, so I've highlighted them. I'm going to bring them over here and put them, group them next to my Microsoft Office apps. There we go. Again, let's say I've got my Microsoft Office apps, but I don't use Access that much, I don't use Link that much. I still want them there so they get accessible to me quickly, but I'm just going to make them a little bit smaller. I can move those around if I want to. I might move them down to the bottom. So you can see already how customizable these are. And now what you also see that these these Microsoft Office apps and these Adobe apps are your traditional apps that you would use before. So they're what we would call desktop apps. Very similar. They're exactly the same as if you were installing these on Windows 7, right? So when I click on these open up in desktop mode. What you do have now are what we call modern UI apps or start screen apps, or there's different lingo, but essentially these are apps that work natively in the Windows 8.1 environment. So let me show you a few different ones. Let's have a look at the News app. So you can see that already it looks a little bit different. It's full screen, and just as it loads, you can see that it's a little bit neater. Just wait for it to load. This is the first time I've opened it, so it's going to take a little bit of time. And really, these apps are designed really nicely for touch. Now, don't let that put you off, because you can still use a keyboard and mouse without any issues. So I'm going to use my finger here and just click, and it takes me to the apps. And of course, you can see how it swipes. I'm just swiping across left to right. No issues. Now, if I wanted to use my mouse, again, I can scroll. So I'm using my mouse wheel now, scrolling, moving from left to right, and I can click back. It'll take me to the main section. Again, on this main section, I can scroll left to right. And this is a great example of the look and feel that a lot of these Windows 8.1 apps have. Now again, if I wanted to find those, so I've got no menu bars. If I wanted to find those menu bars, I'll just right-click with the mouse, and they would come. If I was using this from a touch screen, I'm actually swiping up, putting my thumb just off the screen and swiping up. Same if I was doing it from the top, I can swipe down, and I've got those settings. Alright, so this is pretty much what the Windows 8.1 apps are like. They're very easy. If you can imagine this on a tablet, it's really nice and clean. I do like working in these even in a desktop mode, because it removes all the clutter, and I've got all the information that I need right in front of me. So there we go. Alright, so I'll just hit the Start button and go back to the Start. Now, the next thing that you'll notice about Windows 8.1 are these two side menus. So one is on the right hand side, and this is called the Charms bar. So I'm just having my thumb off the screen and swiping in from the right, and you can see I've got this little this new menu here. Now if this was me using a mouse, I would put my mouse at the top right hand corner, so you can see it just going off, and the Charms menu comes down, and then I just bring my mouse down. Okay, so to the right and down. I can also do it from the bottom right and up. So this Charms menu is quite cool. So you've got here the search function. So you can see I can search everywhere, or I can just search my settings, my files, or the internet. But let's say I want to find all my Lego apps or websites or information. So I've typed in Lego there. And straight away I've got a Lego game that I can go to. I've got a Lego Word document that I can access, and I've got a Lego home or website that I can go to as well. It's also given me a bunch of recommendations as well. But let's say you weren't just looking for that, you were looking for your control panel. You didn't know where that was. Just type control panel there. There we go. So really easy. So that search functionality is nice and fast and works really easily. Very, very handy. The next function here is this share. Now, of course, I'm in the Start menu, so I can't actually share anything. Now, where we go from share is very interesting, because we can go, so let's go to, so this is the Internet Explorer 11 app. This is what it looks like in Windows 8.1 when it's full screen, really nice. Now, if I bring up that Charms menu, I click share, you can see it now gives me all the options, all the different apps that I can share to using Internet Explorer. Now, if I was in another app, some of those options may be different, because I might not be able to share, say, to Twitter, if it was, say, a game app or something like that. and I can choose any of those options. So let's say I want to share this to Facebook. Give me the Facebook options and I can write a post about it. So I can click, alright, I'm just going to remove this and say, hey, how's this for a great site? I can post that, alright. And that would then post to my Facebook. Alright. So this social sharing functionality is really handy, especially if you want to share from your apps. So let's say you share a lot on Twitter, you want to share some articles, you can do that. If you want to read it for later, you can add that to your reading list. You can also create playlists, etc., or send emails. Now, while I'm here in the Internet Explorer app, I'm going to click Settings. Now, what's great about this Charms menu is that it unifies all the settings for all your apps. So I'm going to click Settings. Now, you can see here that these are settings specifically for the for the Internet Explorer app. So I've got options here, and it gives me the Internet Explorer options. I'll click About, and it gives me information about Internet Explorer. Now, let's say I went back to the Start menu and I picked a different app. So let's go to Facebook, right? So I've got my Facebook app open. Now, if I bring up the Charms menu again and click Settings, just like I did in Windows in Internet Explorer, you can see now these are the settings for Facebook. What this means is it's a lot easier to find all your settings. You don't have to worry about trying to hunt down your toolbars, etc. They're all here. Okay, so for every single Windows 8.1 app, the settings will be in that Charms bar, so they're all in the same place. Okay, so no more having to hunt or go to the right menu area to find your settings. They're all there. Okay, great. So you can also click Devices in the Charms menu there, and again, these are for, say, external devices. So if you've got a projector or if you've got a printer, then you can send things there. All right. The next place that I want to take you to is Settings. All right. So, okay. After the settings, actually, I might just pause here before we've got our settings. There's quite a lot to look at there, and we do have just one question.
Yes. How do you go back out of an app or site to go somewhere else?
Great question. So let's say you're stuck in an app. Now, there are a few options, right? So I'm in the Facebook app. So if I want to go to another app, I can just go back to the start. So I'll just swiped in here and click Start, and going back to the Start screen, and I can choose an app from there. But let's say you don't want to do that, and you actually want to close the app. What you would do is you actually drag down from the top. So you can see this is using my finger. If it's the touch screen, you'll drag down from the top here. Oops, do it too slowly, it doesn't work. And that'll close up. Or if I've got my mouse, you can see when I move to the top, it turns into a hand. I've ticked it, and I can drag it and close it. All right, so that's closed. If I want to switch apps, I'll look at that now actually. If I want to switch apps, I'll come over here. Instead of looking at the right-hand side, I'm going to go to the left-hand side. All right, so all your recent apps are here in the left-hand side. So again, what I've done with the mouse, top left-hand corner, and pulled down, you can see I've got my apps. If I was using this as a touch, I've got my thumb on just off to the left and swiping in. Oops. Now, if you're using a touch screen, you can switch between apps really easily. I'm just flicking my thumb from the left and flicking it onto the screen, and you'll see that what this does, it flicks all the recent apps across. Okay, so instead of doing that, I'm going to go in and out, and then I can see what I want, and I can choose which app I want. Right. Again, if I wanted to close this, I'd actually just drag my finger from the top and pull that down and get rid of it. Another great feature that you just saw there is that I can do, I can snap these apps to the left and the right. So I've got one app there, and then I could, let's say, I wanted to show Internet Explorer next to the news. I can do that too. So I can do I can have 2 apps open. I could, depending on your resolution, you might be able to have another app open as well. So let's try that. Let's I'm going to grab that Facebook app again. I wonder if I might, there we go. So I've got 3 apps open at the same time, and I can work across these. Now, this is great for productivity. If I wanted to say, on a daily basis, what I will usually do is have, say, Skype open in on the right-hand side there, and then I'd actually have my desktop sitting in there as well. So, okay, let's show you what that looks like. So I could have Facebook or Skype or whatever on one side, and then have all my hard work here on the left-hand side. All right, so that's how you would switch around, right? Okay, hopefully that answers your questions. We can have a look at that functionality a little bit more if people want to check that out. But for now, let's keep moving, if that's cool. And we'll go into the settings. All right, so settings. Of course, we've seen the settings per app, but down the bottom here, you've got your general PC settings, and this is where people have been interested in finding out things like control panel. All right, now I've just clicked that, and you can see it's sort of hovering around, and what it's actually asking me to do is find a spot to put me. So I'm going to put you in there. All right, so I'm just going to close this Facebook app. Okay, so here are your PC settings. They're not quite as granular as your control panel settings, but they are your sort of average settings that you might want to access. So PC and devices, you can change your backgrounds, change your lock screen. Again, if you want, you can have lock screen apps active. So even if your computer's locked, you can still show your mail or your alarm clock or whatever. So that's pretty simple. So you can see them in PC and devices. So PC settings here on the left, PC and devices. All right, lock screen. You can change your display. A really good feature that they've added in Windows 8.1 is that it works a lot better on high resolution screens if you want to change your DPI settings. So what that means is if you want, let's say you've got a really high definition screen, but you want your each of the elements of the operating system to look larger and make it more usable, you can do that now a lot easier, and they allow for high DPI settings. Okay, so a lot more accessible. You can change that. You can change the way it looks. So I've clicked default, and you can see already it's a lot bigger. All right. Bluetooth, of course. Devices, again, we've looked at. I want to go here to corners and edges. So this turns off the functionality. So let's say you're using a desktop and you don't want to have this whole charms settings thing. You don't want to worry about that. You can turn them on and off if you want to. Okay, you've got your typing settings. You can turn your touch keyboard on if you want to. All right. So that's your fairly basic PC and devices settings. Look, if you're a systems admin or if you are someone who loves to tinker around, you probably want to go into the control panel. These are fairly basic, sort of top-level settings. Accounts is interesting here. So I can go to, I can add more accounts if I want to. Sign-in options. This is handy. There's a nice little feature here, mainly for touch screen users. You can use a picture to sign in instead of using a PIN or a password. You can create a picture password, and that's pretty fun. So let me give you a quick look at this. Okay, so it'll ask me for my password here. I'll type that in. Okay, so I'm going to use this picture here as my picture password. So you have 3 movements that you can make. So you can do circles, lines, or dots. So for my password, I'm going to circle his head and then draw a line from the speakers and then put a dot in his hat, right? Do that again to confirm it. Circle, line, dot. And now whenever I log in, instead of asking me for a password, it's going to show that picture, and I just have to do that combination of touches to log in. So it's a nice little feature for touchscreen users. You can use your mouse, but it's not as smooth. Now, the next PC setting that I want to show you is this SkyDrive. So of course you can use SkyDrive storage and give you information. Camera roll, so it uploads your photos automatically to SkyDrive. But what's really interesting is the sync settings. So remember what I was saying, if you use a Microsoft account, you can synchronize all your settings across your PCs. This is where you can do it. So I can turn this on. You can synchronize everything from the start screen to the settings you've got for your different apps, web browser, etc., language, accessibility options, and you can back up these settings as well. And that synchronizes across your Microsoft account. Of course, if you don't want to do that, if you want to keep your work life and your home life separate, don't worry about synchronizing those. You can turn these all off. But this is very handy if you are having to work across multiple computers and you want to just log in and be familiar with what you're looking at. So that's very, very handy. Okay. Of course, you've got your regular other settings here, like your network settings, privacy, etc. Search and apps, again, you've got those options to work through those search settings, and also you can change what notifications you get. Alright. There you go, you've got all your information. So this behaves very similar to like tablet functionality, or if you were using this as sort of a mobile device, if you're familiar with, say, iPads and you're familiar with the sort of settings that you get with that, then this is where you would find those similar settings. But if you want desktop settings, then you would go to the control panel and go into it in more detail. All right, I'm just going to pause here and see if there are any questions.
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. The first was, how do you insert your own photo on your desktop background?
Great. So if you want it on your desktop background, you can do that. So we'll have to go to the desktop. You can also do, now if you want your own photo, this is on the start screen. Now let's go back to the start screen. Remember, pull in settings and then personalize at the top here. You can change sort of from the predefined backgrounds, or you can change like the background colors and the accent colors, and that's very nice. But let's say you want to personalize it a bit more. All right, you would do that by showing your desktop background on the start screen. Okay, and we'll do that. Let's do that now. All right, let's jump into the desktop. Were there any more questions? Yep, I would. Just before we move on, we'll just answer a couple more questions.
Ben, would you be able to demonstrate again how to split the screen with multiple apps?
Sure. Okay, so Windows 8.1 will let you split the screen at the very least in two. Depending on your resolution, you may be able to split it up even further. But I'll show you again. So we're talking about modern UI apps here. So these are the new Windows 8 apps. These aren't desktop apps, okay? So I would say open my calendar, and this is an app. So I would grab it with my mouse or with my finger and pull it, and then just pull it off to the side here, and you can see that black bar appears. There we go. Now let's say I wanted to add another app. I've just clicked in that empty space, and I'm going to say open up Twitter, and that's put that into that empty space for me. Now, yep, okay, so the next question is, what would happen if I wanted to add another app? I can pull one again from the side here, or I can do it from the start screen, but let's say I've had one open in the past, my Facebook one. Now you can see I've just hovered it again in that space, and it's given me room to move. Now if I want to be super tricky, let's talk desktop. Now, in terms of how you think about the desktop, you almost have to think about it like an app within itself. So if you think about, if you're like a systems admin, or if you're familiar with virtual machines, or like parallels or something like that, if you think about the desktop as sort of like a whole app within itself that allows you to do a whole bunch of things, then you can, oh no, it won't let me add another one. So I'm going to put the desktop into this space here. So what I now have is a desktop. So this is your traditional sort of desktop app, desktop environment, so very familiar. You've got your start button here, you've got your things here. If you use XP or Vista or Windows 7, this is what you're familiar with. You can see that that exists next to my Twitter app, and also exists next to my Facebook app. All right. Okay, now that we've got our desktop app open, let's start using it. So I'm going to grab this bar here. All right, I'm going to pull this all the way across, and then it'll bring the desktop into a full screen. Great. So now we're in your familiar environment. Let's say you have a whole bunch of people in your office and you don't want to have to worry about taking them through the whole start screen thing. The great thing is once you're in the desktop mode, so again from the start screen, you would find this button here that says desktop. You click that. All right, and you're in desktop mode. So when you first start Windows at the moment, you're presented with this, okay? But let's say you don't want that. One of the cool features now is that you can customize it and to make it more desktop friendly or mouse keyboard friendly. So I'm going to right click on the taskbar down here and click Properties. I'm going to go to Navigation. Okay. Now under Navigation, you can see these options here that say Start Screen. Hopefully that's not too small to see on your computer, but it says Show my desktop background on the Start menu. So that was the person asking about how do we customize the background, so we can do that. Okay. When I sign in or close all apps on a screen, go to desktop instead of start. Okay, so those are the two options that you want to make this feel as much as a desktop as you want. So you click apply and click OK. Alright, so now whenever I log into the computer, it's going to take me to this screen straight away. It's going to bypass that start screen. Also, when I click the start button, which is now back here, it's kept the desktop background there, which is great because that it sort of keeps the start screen within the context of the desktop. It doesn't feel as foreign anymore. Okay, so if you want to customize the background, again, you just right-click, click Personalize, and then choose whatever desktop background you want. So let's say I want to grab my Sony background. There we go. Again, now that I've changed that, when I click the Start menu, you can see that background is persistent there. It's still there in the background. All right. So here's your desktop. It's you can access your desktop apps. I've got PowerPoint, which is desktop app. I've got my File Explorer here. I've also got an Internet Explorer icon here. Now, remember when I clicked Internet Explorer from the Start screen, it brought it up into this full menu, this sort of full screen mode. If I was on the desktop and clicked Internet Explorer now, it opens up in what they call desktop mode. So this is more familiar. If you wanted to use another browser, then you can do that as well. Not all browsers support this Windows 8 mode, but they will support the desktop mode. Okay, so going back to the desktop now. You can access all your desktop apps from the start screen. So again, going on the start button, I'll open up one of my Adobe apps. So let's say I want to open up Fireworks. It takes me to the desktop and then opens up in desktop mode. Okay, so I can use it just in this exactly the same way as I would have in Windows 7. Okay, all your toolbars there, very familiar, etc., etc. Again, remember when we're talking about the charms bar and the settings. If we do that and I click settings now, it gives me the option for the control panel there. So it's very much in the vein of, okay, this is desktop mode, so a desktop user wouldn't want, say, the PC settings in the start menu. They may want the control panel. So I click control panel, everything's there. There are also a few handy keyboard shortcuts. For example, if I press the Windows key and X, I get this new little menu here, and I can get my control panel, my File Explorer, etc. Sign in, sign out, shut down. Very handy if you're an admin or if you're sort of a power user that wants to access this sort of stuff. Definitely check out all the different shortcuts that you can get. Again, in desktop mode, you can do all the usual things. So you can do your snapping. So I've just pressed Windows left and the left key, and that's pulled that to the right, to the left. And I press Windows and right, and it snaps to the right. Those sort of shortcuts have been around forever. Oops, I actually wanted that. So, all right. Again, everything's there. All right. Very, very familiar. Okay, let's pause here and see if there are any questions.
Yes, we do have a question. How do you install hardware such as a printer?
Yep, great. So for a printer and hardware, Windows 8.1 comes with a lot of drivers already pre-installed. So what that means is that you don't have to chuck in CDs or hunt around online for the majority of newer devices. Even a lot of older devices will already be available. It only gets to the point where you're looking at sort of niche devices like say you've got like an audio interface, like you want to do some audio recording and you've got an older one of those, you may have to hunt around. But a lot of those are plug and play. So now with USB, just plug it in and it'll find it. If you have some old devices and you're not sure, we might actually go into that section soon and show you some of the features and some of the options you can look for when you're upgrading.
How do I set up email?
Great. So if you want email, again, depending on what program you're using and how you're doing it, if you want to use the Mail app, you can do that. So the Mail app in the start screen is very simple. You can see it's a very easy email client. You would open it and it would ask you what accounts you want to add. Now, let's say I want to add another account. So I've got this hooked up to my Outlook. I'll click Settings, okay, Accounts, and then I click Add Account, and I can choose from the different types of accounts. All right. So that's pretty simple. If you're using like if you're on a domain or whatever, using Exchange server, etc., then you can use you can do that as well. Or if you're using Office, then I'm just going to hunt for my. Well, let's say I want to find Outlook. I'm just going to go to my search, Outlook 2013, and then you would set up Outlook in the same way that you would have traditionally done it. Okay. All right. Now, in terms of, let's say the next steps is thinking about upgrading. So we've got about 15 minutes left, and so what I want to do now, hopefully that's given you a quick rundown of Windows 8.1 and what you can look at. The next question will be, just quickly, there are going to be some new updates coming very soon. We're hoping in the next month or so, and what we're expecting is essentially more user-friendly options for keyboard and mouse users. So there's a few different things where you can pin apps to the taskbar, etc., and they've got make it easy to close and switch apps. But if you want to look up for more information on that, you can go Windows 8.1 Update 1, and you'll find more information. Okay, so let's say it's time for you to think about upgrading. There are a few things that you want to do. First and foremost, always back up your files and data. Even though you can upgrade directly from, say, Windows 7 and keep your personal files, and Windows 8 and keep everything, it's always worth double-checking and making sure you've got those backups anyway. Also, check the minimum requirements. As we were saying, Windows 8.1 can work quite nicely even on older machines, but it does take up quite a bit of hard drive space. So I think it was about 16 gigs or 13 gigs. So if you've got a smaller hard drive, you may want to check those or maybe get a new hard drive. Okay, there is a really handy tool that you can look up. So if you search online for Windows 8.1 Upgrade Assistant or Upgrader Assistant, there is a program that you can download from Microsoft which will assess your programs and your devices to make sure that they will work in Windows 8.1 or that all those drivers are available to you. Especially handy if you're using like older printers or older cameras that you're not sure about. Just use the Upgrader Assistant and it'll take you through that. If you're not using, if you're upgrading from Windows XP, you won't be able to use that assistant, but you can go to the Compatibility Center. So you can search again online for Windows Compatibility Center and you'll find it, or there's a link there if you want to copy that down. And that allows you to search manually for all of your devices, all your software, and it'll give you a tick of approval to see if those programs or devices are compatible with Windows 8.1. As I was saying, Windows 8.1 has a lot of support. There hasn't been heaps of programs which don't work. And finally, get your licenses and install. And installation is pretty simple. If you're installing from Windows XP, you will have to do a completely clean install. So definitely do your backups first. And you may be able to do just an upgrade from Windows 7 or Vista. But of course, a lot of people like to do clean installs anyway. Now, if you're a not-for-profit and you are eligible for donations from Microsoft, you can get Windows 8.1 through our program. So if you're in Australia, you can go to our website, connectingup.org, and you can see what donations are available. So in the past 7 years, Microsoft has downloaded over $200 million worth of software to the not-for-profit sector, and that includes Windows operating systems. So if you need Windows 8.1, or if you're looking to upgrade your software, you can definitely get that through us if you're part of their eligibility criteria. If you're in New Zealand, and I see there's a couple of people here from New Zealand, then you can access that through TechSoup New Zealand. If you're in some of the Southeast Asian countries, you can get that from TechSoup Asia. Okay, so what can you actually access through those programs? You can get Windows 8.1 Enterprise Upgrade. So if you want to upgrade your software, so let's say you're running Windows 7 or Vista already and you want to upgrade it, then you can do that through the Windows 8.1 Enterprise Upgrade. Now, the difference between Windows 8.1 and Enterprise and Pro is just there's some new features that work especially well with Windows Server 2012. It's also worth noting here that you can't upgrade to Windows 8.1 Enterprise from any Home Edition software. So you can see there listed below are all the versions that you can upgrade from. If you run Windows, say, 7 Home Edition, what you'll need to do is get a donation of Get Genuine software. Now, the Get Genuine software through Microsoft is a full operating system. So these aren't Pro versions, this is the full operating system. Now, the key point here is that you can only place one Get Genuine order ever through the donations program. So if you've already done it for, say, Windows 7 or Windows, for Windows 7 or Windows 8, you won't be able to do it for Windows 8.1 Pro. You'll have to get the upgrade. Now this is handy if you're using, say, again, Home Edition, or if you're not sure if it's a legitimate version of Windows on your computers, and you for some reason it won't let you upgrade, then that's what Get Genuine is here for. But remember, there are those restrictions around Get Genuine, so be very conscious of that when you place your order for Get Genuine software. Also, it doesn't include software assurance, so for the Enterprise version you get software assurance, which means you get free upgrades for future versions within, I think, a 2-year period. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the presentation. So if you do want to get your donations, if you haven't already signed up to one of our accounts or one of our websites, please do, depending on what country you are. And once you go through the process of signing up and getting your eligibility criteria, you'll be notified about what software you can access through us. So it's not just Microsoft. Not just Microsoft, we also have other products from Symantec and other software providers as well. Okay, so are there any final questions?
Yes, Ben, thank you. The first question is it advisable to rely only on Windows Defender and not install additional antivirus software?
Really, it will depend on your situation. I would Oh, sorry everyone. I would look at a third party as well, especially if you're in an enterprise situation. Oh gosh.
Okay, we have a question here from Sue. Can previous versions of Internet Explorer be used in Windows 8.1? Okay, Ben, that was the last question here. Do you have any last few words that you would like to add?
No, that's it. And we'll have the webinar available recorded with all my coughing probably later today. So if you want information about that, you will receive a link. But we'll also be available on our website. So we have a learning center that has all of our previously recorded free webinars available too. So if you do have any other questions about Windows 8.1, please send them through. You can send an email to us at Connecting Up, so you'll have those details in the webinar info. So thanks very much for sitting through, and I hope that sheds some light on how to use Windows 8.1 for your organization.
Thank you, Ben, for presenting, and thank you each and every one of you who could join us today. As Ben mentioned, you will be receiving an email shortly with a link to the recording and the slides. So until next time, thank you and bye-bye.